is Jeff Wight, who's representing the Meadows at Hammond Care. Jeff joined Hammond Care 3 years ago, is now Head of People Services. He has a Commerce degree in Industrial Relations, worked in finance and retail sectors, including Reserve Bank, Coles Myer, Woolworths, 14 years of experience in aged care. This morning, Jeff's going to tell us about the change that occurred at the Meadows, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a dementia-specific hostel. Across not much more than a year, the Meadows achieved a very noticeable improvement in their survey scores, which clearly got them into the finalists, and then we heard more about the detail of what occurred earlier. We saw things like an 11% improvement in employee engagement, and there was an average improvement of 19% across all of the other work practices that were assessed in the survey, an average improvement of 19%. So rather than just picking out any one, you saw all of the things that are being assessed in the survey, a very dramatic turnaround that had occurred. For me, one of the standouts when I was reading through was often we'll come across the challenge of silos, and indeed we heard about it in the previous presentation, and that was a key problem, by no means necessarily the only problem, but a key problem. The nature of the dementia care model at Hammond Care is they'll have separate cottages at different locations, and there were 3 separate cottages within the Meadows, and they were not playing nicely together, essentially was one of the big problems. So over-summarising it, of course, but I invite Jeff Wight up to tell us more about the story of the Meadows. So thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Peter. Talking to people about the voice, you know it's great evidence-based material to work with your staff. And on some of the slides Peter showed before, you saw the P words as a common theme coming through. And one of the P words that Hammond Care use is passion. When the manager yesterday, I know this is a bit weird, we get the award yesterday, but I'm down here talking in Melbourne. The manager came up and accepted the award, and one of the things she said was the passion of the staff and the way they go about their work, and that's one of the traits within Hammond Care. Let me paint the picture about Hammond Care overall. It's an independent Christian charity. We have a passion for improving the quality of life of people in need. Now, how do we do that? Brief overview, we're about 2,500 staff, turnover 165 million. We specialise in dementia care, palliative care, rehabilitation, mental health for older persons, and we do this through subacute hospitals, our community Hammond at Home service and residential services. Now, when I talk about voice surveys, overall Hammond Care, I'll just say it's basically green, particularly in our passion. So you get the sense of Hammond Care, a progressive organisation, and people are engaged because of that passion that we have for what we do. The Meadows, and for larger organisations, you know your voice survey, you can break it down to your particular cost centres or sites or whatever, and Meadows is one of those sites. Again, it's a 40-bed dementia-specific facility, and it's divided up into 3 cottages of 14, 14 and 12 beds. Now, how the model works, if you know anything about aged care, it's different in dementia care. They're cottages, we make them, they're the home of the residents. It's not a clinical facility where people come in and do different tasks, personal care or cooking or whatever. Our staff do everything for the residents. They work alongside them to cook their meals on the site in a kitchen. They do the cleaning with the residents, they look after the residents. So it's a home environment. The clinical stuff is not on the floor. So you're starting to get a picture of how the care and how the staff are engaged and passionate in looking after these people with dementia. You heard the issue, and there's about 35 staff across the Meadows site as part of this thing, and you've heard the issues. The silo mentality, the manager would say, the grumbling. When we did the voice survey back in 2012, diversity was one of the issues, and particularly bullying, harassment and other issues, and the manager could see, look, we need help. They've been working on the issues. So it's a combination of things that build up over time. It's not just all of a sudden. And I'll jump to the solutions. They're simple. It's not earth-shattering stuff, but it's getting in there and doing the work. I had the privilege of being involved in supporting the manager in my role as in the people services at the time. So I'm familiar with a number of the issues that had to go about. And some of them may be familiar to you. Some of the issues, workers' comp was going up. So on workers' comp, you have people on suitable duties and people struggle with that because you've got to cover for them, and that's a source of grumbling. Then the grumbling leads to other things. They're not pulling their weight and people start complaining about other people. but they're not telling the manager what's going on. So out of the voice survey, you can start to see this picture of what's going on, and the manager said, yeah, well, I'm working on it, but not getting anywhere. So we started to focus on, well, what can we do? And it started with staff meetings. Let's hear from the staff. We've heard from the voice survey, they're telling us, but is anyone listening to them actually what's happening? Has anyone stopped to listen? And you'll see on your voice surveys, survey feedback's always a good measure of, do you actually tell them what we're hearing and what are we doing about it? So when you come to the next survey, well, okay, are there results that are measurable and evidence-based to say, yes, we're making a dent on that particular problem? In this case, it was a clear, massive improvement. So I'm jumping ahead, I'll come back to the issues. So sitting down with the staff, the manager and I, we go through what are the, defining what bullying harassment is and what it isn't. That was a sort of aha moment for staff to say, oh, it's not that, like we don't like each other. Well, that's not necessarily bullying and harassment. But it was hearing them through. They had the passion for the residents, but they didn't have the sort of passion of working and valuing each other and that whole teamwork approach. And that's one of our values that we're saying, well, do you realise what you're doing? And the message is, we're not asking you to like each other, but we're asking you to be professional and about how you go about your role and interact with each other. And you would say, yeah, we love the residents, we do our best for them. That's great. That's the passion we want to see. But part of the passion is, are you working together as a team? And if you have an issue, there is someone you can talk to. You don't have to sit there and take it and grumble. And the manager opening, and the simple message is, a manager doesn't know what they don't know. So how's the manager expected to do this? Because some of the comments were, the manager doesn't care, or we tell the manager but nothing's ever done about it. Just sort of those usual comments that come through. But clearly the manager didn't know because no one was telling the manager. So opening up that doorway and pathway for staff to say, look, we have a way, if we have an issue, we can raise it. And yes, it will be addressed. It doesn't go down the black hole. So that's part of the engagement process. So you can start to see there's a combination of things. Aligning the focus on, okay, remember why we're here. Where's that passion? We're not seeing it. While they worked in 3 cottages, and the logic behind that is because when you talk about dementia residents, familiarity is important. That consistency is part of their life, and that trust, and they get to know the people who are looking after them. Sure, there's some rotation because it's useful for that, but also understand it's very emotionally draining. If you're doing that work, you go home at the end of the day, you're emotionally drained. And if your team's not working, you can start to see how that impacts on your work-life balance, which was one of the key measures. They're going home, they're not happy, but they know in them, I've got to do my best for the residents. So there's that tension running between the staff. So starting to unleash that and say, yes, you can do something about it is very important to them. We had a change in management, and I'll come to the term right people. Now, that's part of our model of care. There are other aspects of it about quality, individual choice, but having the right people there is important. There's a change in management, not that the previous manager wasn't trying, but this manager came in with a different approach, a humorous approach, where she could get along staff and laugh at things and start to engage and share. Maturity, she was a more mature manager, so she'd been through life's knocks, so she could relate to the staff a lot better. And it was just that connection, as well as letting staff know, I'm here to hear. Tell me, and I'm willing to respond. Yes, well, there is a yes, we can help you, or there is a no. Being honest in that response approach, but putting the resources into listening to them. This was cottage team meetings, whole site team meetings, so staff could air in a safe, honest way, here are my issues. What are we dealing with? Workers' comp was one of those issues, and I'll just digress for a minute. And it's one of those problems when you get workers' comp, it's basically 0 now. But the days lost back then, it was some people when they engage in workers' comp, yes, the theory is you return to work, get them back operating, support them in the process, get them back up to speed again. But when there's sometimes an attitude they don't want to be there, that attitude rubs off on everyone else, and therefore there's this thought, I've got to carry them, they're not doing that, and they're not helping, and then the grumbling starts. Still going through the right process, there was a couple of people we took off site and gave them suitable duties somewhere else. We had that luxury because Meadows is part of a broader Hammond Care site. We're able to do that, support the people on workers' comp, but actually get the people on to do their function, because if you can understand dementia care is, caring for the individual, engaging them, but also looking after them, you really need to work as a team to keep that happening, because things happen at the drop of a hat. You'd be looking after one resident behavioural challenges are significant, if I can say that. There's just needs unexpected all the time, so you really need to work as a team. So that helped the team while supporting the people on workers' comp. Just as a side issue, one of those people on workers' comp decided, and I'll come back to the right choice, that wasn't the right environment for them, so they're no longer with us. So that was their choice. But it's part of managing the total HR issues within the site, not just ignoring some and telling staff, look, you've got to support this person, put up with them, but from a functional point of view, it wasn't happening on the site. So you've got to come up with creative ways to handle that. The right people also, the manager engaging with the staff and the staff engaging with them and opening those pathways to say, yeah, we can raise issues and they will be dealt with. And yes, they are dealt with. So there's that commitment to respond to those concerns. Also on the right people, to help the manager, there was a link where she brought in another person who'd been long serving, because we have other sites with cottages on the main geographic site. Another person came in who the staff knew, and she was a team leader. And part of that engagement was, again, coming back to the right people, helping those connections happen on the ground with the manager and working through. So having that support for the manager, there weren't any, I'll call them, there was no blind spots. The process happened, and again the team meetings supporting through that. So what I'm coming back to, the simple stuff, listening to the staff. Yes, they've done the survey, yes, there's an issue, what are we going to do about it? Let's hear what the staff are, the specific issues are, and then dealing with them. So again, it's not rocket science. Other issues, rewarding staff. Now we have a reward and recognition, and I know other sites or other employers have it, but how you go about it. We divide it essentially into two parts. There's that personal management recognition where they can issue a thank you card. Some people don't like the hoopla of getting up formal awards, here's an award, great. Some people like that private individual recognition. Just simple things. Again, we're an independent Christian charity, we're not for profit. Movie tickets for a job well done, going above and beyond what we call our mission in action, how you go about serving the residents or working in a team. Simple things to recognise staff. And also during that time between the survey in 2012 and 2013, twice a year we have a formal recognition event where we recognise long-serving staff 10, 15, 20 years, but also for performance awards where they're peer-nominated. So it's not a management-driven thing, it's actually peer-nominated. And one of the cottage teams for doing something exemplary in that particular cottage got a team award in front of all their peers on the whole site. So that was part of the recognition for them. We're doing something important, something valuable that the business recognises. Again, parts of the process, there's no one gem of an answer, but a combination of issues that helped turn that cottage around and re-engage the staff to help them refocus on what they were doing. Roster flexibility. I know for people involved in rosters, it's one of those heartache things that you never get it right, because people they want to do this and they won't be flexible. But listening to staff, because well-being is one of those issues, that emotional engagement because of the nature of the work. Having those flexible, look, I need to go off and see my kids at school, there's a school event, or I've got to do those appointments. The manager actually going beyond and allowing that flexibility, and the staff covering for each other and giving that roster flexibility within the cottage. Another key issue to allow, yes, it can happen. I'm not locked into this, and there is that flexibility. All right, again, I come back to just simply summing up the survey, the evidence-based, but you've got to dig deeper. What are the actual issues that you can address in a meaningful way? And there's simple things. I come back to right people is so important, and it may mean moving people sideways or adjusting people temporarily to make sure that combination works in terms of the teamwork. And showing a real tangible commitment to your staff, not just hearsay, oh yeah, okay, we'll do that, but actually doing it. And the humour of the manager, just her way of having a laugh and not taking things so seriously all the time and having that connection. Sure, leadership, senior management would come in, but it was that engagement with the site manager and having that support around her that re-engaged, because the staff had the passion for what they were doing. It was just re-engaging, refocusing and working together. I'll stop there. Thank you.